Hey guys, tonight we journey into the dark forests and misty mountains of 15th century Wallachia, the land that gave birth to the legend of Dracula. But forget the bats, the capes and the charismatic vampires of gothic novels. We're going to explore the miserable, traumatic and deeply unstable life of the real man who inspired the myth. Prince Vlad III, a ruler known to his enemies not as a creature of the night, but as Chepesh, the Impaler. So, before we begin, if you enjoy these quiet explorations of history's grim and often misunderstood figures, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe. And as always, I'd love to know where you're listening from. Leave a comment below with your city and the time. Now, let's pull our cloaks a little tighter against the cold and ease into the grim and brutal childhood of the man who would become a monster. Congratulations. You have just been born sometime around the year 1431 into the royal house of Wallachia. You are Vlad, second son of the ruling prince Vlad III. The good news, you are a prince, a member of a noble dynasty. The bad news, Wallachia is a small, perpetually unstable Christian principality trapped in a geopolitical nightmare, squeezed between two ravenous superpowers, the Kingdom of Hungary to the north and the vast, ever-expanding Ottoman Empire to the south. Your life will not be one of luxury and ease. It will be a desperate, lifelong struggle for survival, not just for your kingdom, but for yourself. Your father is a man in an impossible position. He spends his entire reign desperately trying to balance the demands of the Hungarians and the Ottomans, a political tightrope act that requires him to switch allegiances whenever the wind changes. He is a member of a prestigious chivalric order, the Order of the Dragon, created by the Holy Roman Emperor to defend Christendom against the Ottoman threat. For this, he is known as Vlad Dracula, Vlad the Dragon. This is an obscure but vital detail. Your name, Dracula, simply means son of the dragon. It is, at its origin, a noble, heroic name, meant to signify your family's sacred role as defenders of the faith. It will, through a series of very unfortunate and very bloody life choices, later become associated with something significantly less heroic. In the year 1442, when you're about 11 years old, your father makes a fateful political calculation. To appease the powerful Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II and prove his loyalty, he agrees to pay his annual tribute. But the Sultan demands something more than money. He demands a guarantee. He demands your father's children. And so, your father travels to the Ottoman court and hands you and your younger brother Radu over to the Sultan. This is not a study abroad program. It is a very polite and well-established form of political blackmail. You are now a royal hostage. As long as you and your brother are the Sultan's guests, your father is unlikely to cause any trouble for the Ottoman Empire. You watch your father ride away, leaving you behind in the heart of your enemy's territory. It is a lesson in the cold, brutal calculus of power that you will never forget. The precise conditions of your captivity are debated by historians. Were you treated with the gilded respect due to a foreign prince? Or were you subjected to the harsh discipline and psychological torment of a valuable but untrustworthy prisoner? The reality was likely a strange and unsettling mixture of both. Your new home is the Ottoman court, a world of incredible luxury, sophisticated learning, and casual, absolute brutality. You are given a fine education. You learn to speak Turkish fluently. You study the Quran, logic and philosophy alongside the Sultan's own sons, including the brilliant and ambitious young prince who will one day be known as Mehmed the Conqueror. You also learn about Ottoman military strategy and, most importantly, their methods of enforcing order. You see firsthand how the Sultan deals with dissent. you learn about the Ottoman practice of impalement, a slow, agonizing, and very public form of execution designed to inspire absolute terror and obedience. You are a prisoner in a golden cage. You are constantly aware that you are being watched, that your every word is noted. You know that a single bad report about your father's behavior, a single rumor of his betrayal could result in your very swift and very public death. It is a stressful educational environment. While your younger brother Radu seems to adapt, becoming a favorite of the court and a close friend of the future Sultan Mehmed, you are different. You are proud, defiant, and filled with a cold, simmering rage. A rage at the Sultan who holds you captive, a rage at the Hungarian king who failed to protect you, and a deep, bitter rage at your own father for abandoning you. Here, then, a few years into your captivity, the worst possible news arrives. A rival faction back in Wallachia, supported by the Hungarian governor John Hunyadi, has risen up against your father. Your father, Vlad Dracula, has been betrayed and brutally murdered by his own nobles, the boyars, in the swamps near his home. Your older brother and heir, Mircea, was captured by the same nobles, blinded with a red-hot poker, and then buried alive. In a single bloody stroke, your father and your heir are gone. You are now an orphan. You are still a prisoner deep in enemy territory, and the throne that should be yours has been usurped. Your traumatic childhood is officially over. The world has just taught you, in the cruelest way imaginable, that trust is for fools, mercy is a weakness, and the only power that truly matters is the power that is enforced through absolute, terrifying fear. You are 17 years old, an orphan prince in a foreign land, and the throne of your homeland has been stolen by the very men who murdered your father and brother. Your life, by all accounts, should be over. You are a pawn with no king, but the Sultan, Murad II, is a master of the great game of geopolitics. He does not see you as a broken orphan. He sees you as a useful tool. With your father gone and a new prince, Vladislav II, placed on the Wallachian throne by the rival kingdom of Hungary, the Sultan now has a perfect, legitimate excuse to interfere. He decides to help you. He gives you a loan of Turkish cavalry and a contingent of soldiers and tells you to go and reclaim your father's throne. This is another miserable reason it sucks to be you. Your first taste of command is not at the head of your own loyal army, but as the nominal leader of a foreign invasion force. You are a Christian prince, the son of the dragon, a callback to your father's holy order, and you are about to ride into your own country under the banner of the Ottoman crescent moon. The irony is as sharp as a Turkish scimitar. Your invasion in late 1448 is a stunning success, but for reasons that have nothing to do with you. The powerful Hungarian governor, John Hunyadi, the man who sponsored the new Prince of Wallachia, is conveniently away on a massive campaign deep in the Balkans, fighting the Sultan's main army. With Hunyadi and his army gone, Wallachia is defenseless. You and your Ottoman force sweep in with little resistance. Say, usurper, Vladislav II flees. You ride into your capital city of Târgoviște and take the throne. But there are no celebrations. The people do not cheer for their returned prince. They look at you, a teenager surrounded by Turkish soldiers, and they see a foreign puppet. The powerful nobles, the boyars, the very men who betrayed your father, now come before you and bow, their faces masks of false loyalty. They see not the rightful heir, but a boy propped up by Ottoman swords, a temporary inconvenience to be managed until the political winds shift again. This is the great historical fact of your kingdom. The prince or voivode does not have absolute power. He is elected by and rules at the pleasure of the great council of boyars. They are the kingmakers and the kingbreakers. You are now in a room with your father's murderers, and you must accept their fealty, knowing that any one of them would gladly kill you too if it suited their interests. It is not so much a coronation as it is a very tense job interview. Your precise actions during this brief 2-month reign are almost completely unrecorded by history. Whether you tried to implement reforms, sought secret revenge on your father's killers, or simply spent the time in a state of paranoid paralysis is lost to the chaos of the era. What is certain is that your rule is built on a foundation of sand. You have no local support, no personal army, and your only backers are the Ottomans, who are hundreds of miles away, busy fighting a real war. Then the inevitable news arrives. John Hunyadi, having been defeated by the Sultan in the Great Battle of Kosovo, is now returning to Hungary with the tattered remnants of his army. He is angry, he is humiliated, and he is marching in your direction. The moment the boyars hear that the Hungarians are coming back, they begin to shift their allegiances once more. Your Ottoman allies, seeing that the political situation is no longer favorable, discreetly vanish, melting back across the Danube. They were never there to protect you. They were only there to cause a temporary disruption for their Hungarian rivals. You are now completely alone, a 17-year-old king with no army, ruling over a nest of treacherous nobles who are about to welcome back the very man you just deposed. Your reign comes to a sudden and very predictable end. After only 2 months on the throne, you are forced to flee for your life. Do you become a fugitive, slipping out of your own capital in the dead of night, escaping just ahead of the returning army of Vladislav II? Your first taste of power has been a short, bitter, and profoundly humiliating failure. You have learned that a throne given to you by a foreign power can be taken away just as quickly, and you are now an enemy of both the Hungarians, who see you as an Ottoman agent, and the Ottomans, who see you as a failed investment. You are a prince with no kingdom, no allies, and nowhere to go. You are now a fugitive, a prince with no kingdom, a king of nothing. This is the next reason it sucks to be you. You will spend the next 8 years of your life as a professional royal refugee. Your new job is to wander the courts of Eastern Europe, a political pawn in a game played by more powerful men. Your main skills during this period are looking regal while being completely broke, making polite, non-committal conversation at the dinner tables of kings who may or may not be planning to have you killed later, and nurturing a deep, cold, and patient well of hatred in your heart. Your exact movements during these years of exile are poorly documented. You were, for a time, a ghost in the historical record, a prince with a famous name, but no land, no army, and no power. Your first stop is the neighboring Principality of Moldavia, ruled by your uncle, Bogdan II. This offers a brief period of relative comfort and safety. You are family. You are treated with the honor due to your rank, but you are still a guest, a dependent, living on the charity of a relative, and you learn another valuable lesson about your world. No sanctuary is permanent. In 1451, your uncle, the Prince of Moldavia, is assassinated by a rival claimant to his throne during a wedding feast. You learn another valuable family lesson. Never attend a wedding in the Balkans without checking for assassins first. You are forced to flee once. Again, your last safe haven now gone. Having run out of friendly relatives who are still alive, you make a bold, desperate, and incredibly dangerous move. You travel to the Kingdom of Hungary and present yourself at the court of John Hunyadi. This is the man who masterminded the coup against your father. This is the man who sponsored your mortal enemy, Vladislav II, the man who currently sits on your throne. Going to him for help is the 15th century equivalent of showing up at your arch-nemesis's house and asking if you can sleep on his couch for a few years. It is an act of supreme humiliation. It is also a brilliant political calculation. You are a valuable political asset. This is the obscure but crucial reality of being an exiled prince. While Vladislav II rules Wallachia as Hunyadi's puppet, he is not the only option. You are the spare, the backup plan. By keeping you at his court, Hunyadi has a permanent threat to hold over Vladislav's head. If Vladislav ever gets too independent, If he ever flirts with making a deal with the Ottomans, Hunyadi can simply replace him with you. You are not his guest, you are his leverage. You live in a state of suspended animation, a sword that Hunyadi keeps sharpened but stored in a scabbard, ready to be drawn at any moment. These years are a slow, grinding torment for your pride. You are a prince, a Dracula, a son of the dragon, a callback to the noble order your father belonged to, but you live the life of a courtier, a dependent. You watch from afar as your enemy Vladislav rules your country. You hear reports of how he appeases the same treacherous nobles, the boyars, who murdered your father and older brother, a callback to the betrayal that ended your childhood. Your hatred for these men, a cold fire that has been burning in you since you were a boy hostage, is now stoked daily by the humiliation of your exile. You do not just want your throne back, you want revenge. Biblical, terrifying revenge against the boyars who destroyed your family and against the usurper who now enjoys your birthright. You spend your time in the Hungarian court wisely. You study military tactics under Hunyadi, one of the greatest generals in Christendom. You learn about his strategies for fighting the Ottomans. You learn how to command Christian armies. You learn the art of war from your greatest enemy, all the while waiting for the moment when you can use that knowledge to reclaim what is yours. You are patient. You are observant. You watch the shifting alliances, the endless political games. You are no longer the naive teenager who was used as a pawn by the Sultan. You are becoming a master of the game yourself. The years in exile are a crucible, burning away your youthful arrogance and forging it into something much harder, colder, and infinitely more dangerous. A patient, calculated, and absolute will to power. After 8 long years of humiliation, of living as a ghost in foreign courts, the great wheel of fortune finally begins to turn in your favor. It is 1456, and a new, even more terrifying threat has emerged. The young Ottoman Sultan, Mehmed II, the boy you grew up with in the Turkish court, has done the impossible. He has conquered Constantinople, shattering the last remnants of the Byzantine Empire. He is now preparing to push his armies deep into the heart of Europe. His first major target is the key, Hungarian fortress of Belgrade. Your old patron and enemy, John Hunyadi, now the regent governor of Hungary, must march south to meet this existential threat. And he needs his southern border with Wallachia to be secure. Your rival, Vladislav II, the man sitting on your throne, has proven to be an unreliable and weak puppet. He has been making friendly overtures to the Sultan, trying to play both sides. For Hunyadi, this is unacceptable. He needs a wolf to guard the henhouse, not a fox. He needs a man with a personal, burning hatred for the Ottomans. He needs you. And so, after 8 years of being a professional houseguest, your patron finally decides you are useful. He gives you a small contingent of Hungarian soldiers and his blessing to go and take your country back, mostly as a strategic diversion to annoy the Sultan while he is busy at Belgrade. You are not a returning hero being restored to your birthright. You are a political distraction, a convenient tool in a much larger war. You will take it. You march into Wallachia. Vladislav II, his support among the nobles already wavering, rides out to meet you. The precise details of the confrontation are shrouded in legend. Whether it was a dramatic single combat between you and your rival, as the later chronicles claim, or if he was simply cut down in the chaos of a brief, brutal cavalry skirmish, the result was the same. He is killed. You ride into the capital city of Targoviste. You are now, for the second time in your life, the voivode of Wallachia. Congratulations. The throne is yours. Your new subjects are the same powerful, treacherous nobles who murdered your father, who betrayed your older brother, and who loyally supported your predecessor right up until the moment it was no longer profitable to do so. Your first day on the job is a series of tense meetings with your entire court, all of whom have either previously tried to have you killed or have worked for the man you just killed. This is the great historical fact that will define your reign. Your true enemies are not the Turks or the Hungarians. They are the men in this very room. These are the boyars, the powerful feudal landowners of your kingdom. They are an obscure but critical part of your political reality. They are not mere courtiers. They control vast estates, command their own private military retinues, and sit on the royal council that technically elects the prince. They believe the prince rules for them, not the other way around. They have a long and proud history of assassinating any voivode who tries to centralize power or curb their privileges. They look at you, a young man of 25, and they see another temporary manageable ruler. They come before you, these great nobles, and they kneel, they kiss the hem of your robe, they swear elaborate holy oaths of loyalty to you, their hands on sacred relics. You know their oaths are worth less than the cheap wine they will use to toast your health tonight, a health they are already plotting to undermine. They are not loyal to you. They are loyal to their own land, their own power, and to whichever prince is currently winning. You look into their smiling, bearded faces and a callback to the news you received as a boy hostage. You see the men responsible for blinding your brother and leaving your father's corpse in a swamp, and you smile back. This is the sucky reality of your new position. You have the crown, but you have no real power. You have a title, but no loyal army of your own. You are surrounded by enemies who are pretending to be your dearest friends. The 8 years of exile, a callback to your long wait, have taught you a deep and abiding patience. You do not act immediately. You accept their false oaths. You grant them titles and lands. You play their game. But in the quiet of your chambers at night, you begin to make a list. You compile a detailed record of every family, every betrayal, every single noble who played a part in the destruction of your dynasty. You are not just a prince. You are an instrument of vengeance, and you are willing to wait for the perfect moment to strike. Your reign has begun not with celebration, but with a cold, patient, and deeply personal accounting of every single debt of blood that is owed to you. You are the Prince of Wallachia. You sit on a throne that feels less like a seat of power and more like a viper's nest. Every day is a delicate performance. You must pretend to trust the very men you despise, the powerful boyar nobles who were your father's friends one day and his murderers the next. They control the land, the armies, and the royal council. You know that they see you as a temporary inconvenience, another young prince to be managed and eventually replaced when a more profitable alternative presents itself. For months, you play their game. You are patient. You are a callback to the long, humiliating years you spent in exile, learning that patience is a weapon. You wait for the perfect moment to act, and that moment comes on Easter Sunday, 1457. It is a time of Christian forgiveness, of celebrating rebirth and new beginnings. You decide to celebrate by inviting every single major boyar in the kingdom, along with their families, to a grand feast at your court in Targoviste. It is a magnificent gesture of goodwill, of reconciliation, a sign that you wish to let bygones be bygones and rule in harmony with your noble council. It is also, of course, a trap. They arrive in their finest clothes, these powerful bearded men who have ruled Wallachia from the shadows for decades. They feast in your great hall, drinking your wine, laughing loudly, feeling secure. They see you, a young man of 26, and they see a boy they can control. This is their final fatal miscalculation. After the meal, you stand before them. The mood is jovial. You let a cold, hard silence fall over the room. Then you ask them a simple historical question. "Tell me," you say, your voice quiet but carrying a new, unfamiliar weight of command. "How many princes has this land of Wallachia had in your lifetimes?" The boyars, their minds slow with wine and arrogance, take this as a challenge to boast of their age and experience. One old, powerful noble stands up and proudly proclaims he has seen 7 princes on the throne. Another boasts that he has seen 9. They are trying to impress upon you their longevity and their importance. They do not realize that they are proudly, cheerfully signing their own death warrants. When they have finished, you look at them, And for the first time, you let the cold, hard hatred you have been nursing for over a decade show in your eyes. You tell them that the reason the kingdom is weak, the reason it is a pawn between the Hungarians and the Turks, is their endless treachery. Their constant infighting, their greed, and their habit of murdering their princes have bled the country dry. You then ask them a final question. Where are my father and my older brother? A terrified silence descends. A callback to the news that ended your childhood. You are now confronting their murderers directly. Then, as a measure of what you will later call administrative reform, your armed guards, loyal mercenaries you have personally hired, step into the hall. You have them all arrested, the boyars and their families. There is no resistance, they are trapped. The story of what happens next is the most famous and horrifying event of your reign, the moment your name becomes a legend of terror. Whether you truly eliminated all your enemies in one grand theatrical stroke, as the later chronicles claim, or through a more gradual series of arrests and executions, the end result was the same. The old nobility was about to be systematically and brutally destroyed. According to the legend, you separate your prisoners by age. The older boyars, the ones who had proudly boasted of the many princes they had outlived, are taken outside the city walls. There, a series of sharpened wooden stakes have been prepared. They're impaled on the spot, a slow, agonizing, and very public death. A form of execution you learned to appreciate from your time with the Turks. It is a gruesome display of princely justice, a theatrical communication of your new policy on treason. The younger, healthier boyars and their sons are spared, for now. They are chained together and force-marched 50 miles up the Argesh River into the mountains. Their punishment is not a quick death, but a long one. They are to build you a new castle, a fortress on a cliff overlooking the river, a place that will one day be known as Castle Dracula. They are worked to death, stone by stone, their fine clothes turning to rags, their soft hands bleeding as they toil. This is your great purge. In a single, brutal and horrifyingly efficient move, you have broken the back of the old Wallachian nobility. You have avenged your father and your brother, and you have sent a clear, unmistakable message to anyone who might ever consider defying you. This is how you solve the problem of being a prince who rules at the pleasure of his nobles. You eliminate them. It is the beginning of your true reign, a reign built not on inherited legitimacy or the consent of the governed, but on a foundation of absolute, methodical, and unforgettable terror. You have purged the old guard. Your court in Targoviste is now filled with a new nobility, men promoted from the lower ranks whose loyalty is to you and you alone, not to their ancient family names. The boyars who remain are the ones who were smart enough to be terrified. You have established internal order through a masterful and brutal application of fear. But now you face a new and in many ways more insidious enemy, economics. This is the next reason it sucks to be you. You are the absolute ruler of a poor agrarian kingdom, and you discover that the true power in your region is not held by princes with armies, but by a network of smug, wealthy foreign merchants who are bleeding your country dry. These are the Transylvanian Saxons, German colonists who, centuries earlier, were invited by the King of Hungary to settle the lands just north of your border. They have built powerful, fortified and autonomous merchant towns like Brasov and Sibiu. This is a major historical fact that defines your reign. Your relationship with these Saxons is one of constant, simmering conflict. They hold a royal charter from Hungary that gives them a virtual monopoly on all trade passing through your lands. They set the prices, they ignore your tariffs, and, most insultingly, they provide a safe haven for any and every rival. Claimant to your throne who happens to wander by. They are undermining your authority, draining your treasury, and actively supporting your enemies. You are a man who has learned that the only solution to a problem is the application of overwhelming, terrifying force. But you try diplomacy first. You send letters. You propose new, fairer trade agreements that would benefit Wallachian merchants. The Saxons, secure behind their thick city walls and confident in the protection of the Hungarian crown, essentially laugh in your face. They continue to shelter your rivals and ignore your laws. So you resort to the only other diplomatic tool in your arsenal. You gather your army, cross the mountain passes into Transylvania, and burn their suburbs to the ground. In a series of lightning raids, you descend upon the lands around Brasov and Sibiu. You round up every man, woman, and child you can find who is associated with the defiant merchant guilds. And then you introduce them to your signature policy initiative. You have them all impaled in the fields and on the hillsides surrounding their own cities. It is a very aggressive form of trade negotiation. The exact numbers of people you killed during these raids are wildly exaggerated in the reports that follow. Whether the true figure was in the hundreds or the low thousands, the psychological impact of using mass public execution as a tool of economic policy was undeniably effective and horrifying. But here you make a fatal historical miscalculation. You are a man of the 15th century, a man who communicates with the sword and the stake. The Saxon merchants, however, are men of the future. They have access to a new, revolutionary and far more powerful weapon, the printing press. In response to your raids, the surviving merchants launch one of the most successful smear campaigns in history. This is an obscure but vital part of your story, the true origin of your monstrous legend. They begin to produce German-language propaganda pamphlets filled with lurid, gruesome woodcut illustrations. These pamphlets are printed by the thousands and circulated all across the Holy Roman Empire. They tell the story of a monstrous, inhuman tyrant, a blood-drinking devil who feasts among the bodies of his impaled victims, who boils people alive, who delights in the suffering of innocents. It is the 15th century equivalent of being cancelled on social media, but with more graphic illustrations of people on spikes. These stories, a potent mix of fact and grotesque fiction, become bestsellers. This is the birth of the Dracula myth, not from a Transylvanian vampire, but from a trade dispute with German merchants who had better marketing skills than you. A callback to your name, Son of the Dragon, which was meant to be heroic. These pamphlets twist it into something demonic. You, who see yourself as a harsh but just prince, a defender of your nation's sovereignty, are now being branded for all eternity as a sadistic monster. And it's all because you tried to renegotiate a trade deal. The great, sucky irony of your life is that your attempt to be a modernizing, nation-building monarch, to secure your country's economic future, is the very thing that directly leads to your name becoming a synonym for pure, inhuman evil for the next 500 years. You have brought the Saxon merchants to heel through a campaign of economic terrorism. You have centralized power by eliminating the old, treacherous nobility. You are now the undisputed master of your own house. You have built a small, efficient, and fiercely loyal army. You have done everything a prince should do to create a strong, stable, and independent kingdom. But this is the next reason it sucks to be you. Your small, stable kingdom is sitting directly in the path of the most powerful military machine on the planet. And its leader, Sultan Mehmed II, the man who conquered Constantinople, has finally decided to stop ignoring you and to start paying very close attention. The tribute that your father once paid to the Ottoman Sultan, a callback to the reason you were sent away as a hostage, has fallen into arrears. You have simply stopped paying it. For years, the Sultan has been too busy consolidating his new empire to be bothered with a small, troublesome principality like yours. But now, his gaze turns to you. He sends envoys. They arrive at your court in Targovishte not with threats, but with the polite, almost bored arrogance of a global superpower dealing with a minor regional power. They have a simple request: pay the accumulated tribute, a sum of 10,000 ducats, and also provide the Sultan with a levy of 500 of your best young boys for his elite Janissary corps. It is a standard demand. It is the price of your kingdom's continued semi-independent existence. You receive the envoys in your throne room. They stand before you, and in a display of what they consider to be religious respect, they refuse to remove their turbans in your presence. This is an obscure but vital cultural detail. To a Muslim, the turban is a part of his identity and religious attire. To you, a Christian prince in your own court, their refusal to uncover their heads is a profound, calculated insult. It is a non-verbal way of saying that their loyalty is to their sultan and their god, and that you, a mere Christian prince, are not worthy of their full respect. You, a man whose entire reign is built on the principle of absolute, unquestioned authority, do not take this well. You ask them if this is their custom. They proudly say that it is. Then, you say, with a cold, quiet logic that is far more terrifying than any shout, I shall help you to be strong in your custom. You have your guards seize the envoys. You then order that their turbans be permanently affixed to their skulls by driving nails through them. It is a gruesome, theatrical, and deeply symbolic act. You are sending a message back to the Sultan, a message written in blood and bone. The message is no. This is a major historical fact, one of the most famous and infamous acts of your reign. Whether you truly nailed the turbans to their heads, as the legends claim, or if this was another story exaggerated by your enemies, the core of the event is true. You openly and violently defied the Sultan's authority. You have just committed an act that is the 15th century equivalent of spitting in the face of a nuclear superpower. You know exactly what will happen next. The Sultan, a man you know personally, a man whose pride is as vast as his empire, will not let this insult stand. He will come for you, and he will come with the full annihilating force of the Ottoman army. You do not wait to be attacked. You immediately launch a preemptive strike. You lead your small Wallachian army across the frozen Danube River in the winter of 1462, and you wage a lightning war of terror on the Ottoman-controlled territories in what is now Bulgaria. You burn their villages, you slaughter their garrisons, and you do so with a level of calculated public brutality that is designed to be reported back to the Sultan. You are not trying to win a war of conquest. You are trying to win a war of fear. You are trying to make the price of subduing you so horrifyingly high that even the conqueror of Constantinople will think twice. You are now at war with the most powerful man in the world, a man who was once your childhood companion. The game of survival has just been raised to its highest and most terrifying level. You have poked the dragon. Now you must face its fire. Your open defiance and the gruesome execution of his envoys have enraged Sultan Mehmed II. He is not a man to be trifled with. He is the conqueror of Constantinople, the master of a vast and seemingly invincible empire. He does not send a subordinate general to deal with you. He decides to handle this personally. This is the next reason it sucks to be you. Your rebellion has earned you the full, undivided and furious attention of the most powerful man in the world. In the spring of 1462, Mehmed gathers a massive army, one of the largest of the era. This is a major historical fact of your reign. While the exact size of his army is a matter of great historical debate, with Turkish and European sources giving wildly different numbers, what is undisputed is that your own force was catastrophically outnumbered. He marches with perhaps 60,000 to 100,000 elite soldiers, including his personal guard of janissaries and a vast baggage train. Your own army consists of, at most, 30,000 men, a mix of loyal retainers, peasant levies, and mercenaries. You cannot possibly win a conventional pitched battle. To fight his army head-on would not be a battle, it would be a brief, theatrical suicide. The Sultan, a man you know personally from your time as a hostage, a callback to your shared youth, expects you to behave in one of two ways. He expects you to either grovel for forgiveness or to meet him in a single glorious battle where you will be honorably crushed. You choose a third option. You decide to make his invasion of your homeland as miserable, horrifying, and psychologically unpleasant as humanly possible. You are not trying to defeat his army. You are trying to make it quit in disgust. As the massive Ottoman army crosses the Danube and enters Wallachia, they do not find a defending army waiting for them. They find an empty, silent, and poisoned land. This is where you begin your campaign of terror, employing brutal guerrilla and scorched earth tactics. You burn your own villages to the ground so the Turks cannot use them for shelter. You poison the wells and contaminate the rivers so they have no water to drink. You burn the fields of crops so they have no food to forage. You are essentially making sure that the only things his soldiers have to eat are their own shoes, and the only thing they have to drink is their own despair. It is a very effective, if somewhat unsportsmanlike, method of national defense. You become a ghost, a phantom of the forests and the swamps. You refuse to give him the grand battle he craves. Instead, you bleed his army day by day, night by night. You lead small, lightning-fast cavalry raids on his scouting parties and foraging details. You strike from the woods and then melt back into the shadows before the main army can respond. You use the landscape itself as a weapon, luring Turkish columns into marshes and then attacking them while they are bogged down in the mud. You even, according to some of the more gruesome tales, begin sending captured Turkish soldiers back to the Sultan's camp, not as prisoners, but as walking dead. Men, their bodies ravaged by diseases like bubonic plague, a primitive and terrifying form of biological warfare. This is a life of constant, grinding pressure and exhaustion. You never sleep in the same place for more than one night. You're always on the move, always watching, always planning the next small, vicious attack. Your own men are stretched to their limits, but they are fighting for their homes, fueled by a fierce loyalty to you, their terrifying prince, the Ottoman. Soldiers, however, are far from their homes, marching through a desolate, hostile land, where every shadow could hide an ambush, and every sip of water could be their last. Their morale begins to crumble. The swift, glorious conquest that Mehmed promised his troops has devolved into a miserable, inglorious slog through a poisoned wasteland, haunted by an invisible, demonic enemy. You know Mehmed's personality. You know his pride, his need for a decisive victory, and you are deliberately denying it to him. You are not just fighting his army. You are waging a psychological war against the Sultan himself. You are turning his overwhelming strength into a weakness, using the sheer size of his army against him by ensuring it has nothing to eat and no one to fight. It is a brutal, desperate, and brilliant strategy, but it is also a suicidal one. You are destroying your own country to save it, and every day the great slow-moving tide of the Ottoman army, despite its losses, pushes deeper and deeper into your territory, heading for your capital. You are winning the small battles, but you know you are losing the war. You need to do something drastic, something so shocking and so horrifying it will break their will to continue. And you have a plan. You have bled the Ottoman army. You have starved them, harassed them, and turned their glorious invasion into a miserable slog. But they are still coming. The great, slow-moving tide of Sultan Mehmed's force is now just a few miles from your capital city of Târgoviște. You know you cannot hold the city against his cannons. You know you cannot win a conventional battle. You have only one weapon left in your arsenal: pure, unadulterated psychological terror. You decide to make one final, desperate gamble. You will not try to defeat his army. You will try to break his mind. This is the next reason it sucks to be you. Your only remaining path to survival is to commit an act so audacious, so horrifying, that it will echo through history for centuries. Your grand plan to defeat the largest army in the world is not a clever siege defense or a brilliant flanking maneuver. Your plan is to take a few thousand of your best men, dress up like the enemy, and try to stab the Sultan while he is sleeping. It is a plan of such breathtaking audacity that it crosses the line from brave into the territory of clinically insane. This will become the most famous event of your life, the night attack at Târgoviște. The historical accounts of the night attack are filled with legendary embellishments. Whether you truly came within striking distance of Mehmed's tent, as some chronicles claim, or if the raid was a more general, chaotic assault on the camp is impossible to verify. What is certain is the terror and confusion it caused. On the night of June 16th, 1462, you gather your best soldiers, perhaps 7,000 to 10,000 of them. You give them a simple set of orders. You will ride into the heart of the massive, sleeping Ottoman camp. You will create as much chaos and panic as possible, and your primary objective, above all others, is to find and assassinate the Sultan himself. A callback to your personal history. You are not just trying to kill a monarch. You are trying to kill Mehmed, the man you grew up with, the man whose power has haunted your entire life. The Ottoman military camp is not a simple affair. It is an obscure but important detail that it was a massive, highly organized, sprawling city of tens of thousands of tents. The Sultan's personal tent, a luxurious pavilion, is always located in the exact center, protected by a cordon of his most elite and fanatically loyal troops, the Janissaries. To find this single tent in the dark, in the middle of a panicked, hostile army of nearly 100,000 men, is a nearly impossible task. But you lead the raid yourself, of course, dressed in Turkish attire to sow confusion. You and your men slip past the outer sentries and ride silently into the sleeping camp. For a while, the only sound is the soft thud of your horse's hooves on the grass and the gentle flutter of tens of thousands of sleeping soldiers' tents. Then, on your signal, you unleash hell. You and your men begin to shout, to set fires, to cut the ropes of tents, and to slaughter any Turkish soldier you find. Your order to your men is simple. Make as much noise as possible and kill anyone who looks important. It is not a subtle operation. It is a carefully orchestrated, large-scale panic attack. The Ottoman camp erupts into total chaos. Soldiers, woken from a deep sleep, stumble out of their tents, confused and terrified. In the darkness, they cannot tell friend from foe. They begin to attack each other. The Janissaries, trying to form a defensive perimeter around the Sultan's tent, are beset from all sides, unsure of where the real attack is. Incoming from, you and your own small force of Wallachians ride through the pandemonium like ghosts, your swords and axes rising and falling. You are desperately searching for the Sultan's pavilion, a single tent in a sea of chaos. You do not manage to kill the Sultan. His personal guard is too strong, the camp too vast. You likely never even get close. But from a purely psychological standpoint, the mission is a stunning, unprecedented success. You do not withdraw until the sun begins to rise. You have spent hours inside the enemy's own fortress, creating a night of absolute screaming terror. The Turks, after you have gone, spend the rest of the morning counting their dead and killing each other in paranoid skirmishes, convinced that every shadow is a Wallachian assassin. You have failed in your primary objective. The Sultan is still alive, but you have succeeded in a much more important way. You have proven to him that you are not a normal enemy. You are not a king who plays by the rules of war. You are a force of chaos, a creature of the night, who can strike at the very heart of his power at any time. You have shown him that even in the center of his own massive army, he is not safe. You have lost the battle for Wallachia, but you have won the war for his mind, and you have one last terrible surprise waiting for him just outside your capital city. You have failed to kill the Sultan. Your desperate, chaotic night attack was a psychological victory, but not a strategic one. The Ottoman army, though shaken and paranoid, is still intact, and it is still marching inexorably towards your capital, Targovishte. Sultan Mehmed II, a callback to your shared history, knows you well enough to anticipate your cunning. He is enraged, but he is not deterred. He pushes his army forward, expecting you to make a final, desperate stand at the city walls. He is prepared for traps, for ambushes, for more guerrilla warfare. He is not prepared for what you have planned for him. You have decided to dabble in a bit of large-scale, avant-garde landscape art. As Mehmed's army advances through a valley a few miles outside your capital, they begin to see it. At first, it is just strange shapes in the distance, a forest where no forest should be. As they get closer, the horrifying reality becomes clear. This is not a forest of trees. It is a forest of sharpened stakes, and on each stake there is a body. This is the great and terrible historical fact that will forever define your name. This is the forest of the Impaled. It is a meticulously arranged, man-made forest of the dead, stretching for nearly 2 miles, a grotesque monument to your defiance. The exact number of impaled victims, recorded as 20,000 in the chronicles, is almost certainly an exaggeration designed to amplify the horror. But whether the true number was 5,000 or 10,000, the historical and psychological reality of a massive, ordered field of impaled corpses is undisputed. These are the bodies of the thousands of Turkish prisoners and Muslim Bulgarian civilians you captured during your winter raid across the Danube. You have saved them for this very moment. It is a powerful statement about your kingdom's new policy on unauthorized immigration. The execution method itself is a display of calculated cruelty, an obscure and terrifying art form you perfected. The stakes are not sharpened to a fine point, but rounded and oiled. They are inserted into the body in a way that avoids piercing the major organs immediately. The victim is then hoisted into the air, and their own weight slowly drives the stake up through their body, a process that can take hours, sometimes days, of unimaginable agony before death finally comes. You have arranged them in geometric patterns, in concentric circles around a higher stake reserved for the captured Ottoman commander, a mark of respect for his rank. The effect on the Ottoman army is catastrophic. These are veteran soldiers, men who have seen every horror that 15th century warfare has to offer. They witnessed the fall of Constantinople, but they have never seen anything like this. The sight of thousands of their countrymen and co-religionists, dead and dying in a silent, orderly forest of agony, is a spectacle of such profound, inhuman horror that it breaks their morale completely. The smell alone, the stench of death, and decay hanging heavy in the summer air, is a physical assault. The sound of the crows, feasting on the bodies, is the only sound in the valley. Even Sultan Mehmed II, the conqueror of empires, a man not known for his delicate sensibilities, is utterly horrified. The Greek historian Chalcondyles, a contemporary, wrote that the Sultan stood in awe of the sight and admitted that he could not win this land from a man who does such great things and who has such a devilish understanding of how to rule and how to use his power. It is perhaps the most terrifying compliment you will ever receive. He has faced your armies, he has endured your raids, but he cannot face this. This is not war. This is a descent into a kind of madness he cannot comprehend. This is the ultimate reason it sucks to be you. To save your country, you have been forced to commit an act of such monstrous, theatrical cruelty that it places you beyond the pale of the civilized world. A callback to the lessons you learned as a hostage, you have taken the terror tactics of the Ottomans and turned them back on them, magnified 1,000 times over. You have won the psychological war. Mehmed, his army sickened and demoralized, decides that conquering Wallachia is simply not worth the price. He turns his army around and begins the long march back to the Danube. You have saved your kingdom. You have defeated the great conqueror, and in doing so, you have permanently branded yourself in the eyes of both your enemies and your allies as a monster. You have sacrificed your own humanity to secure your throne. You have done the impossible. You have defeated the conqueror of Constantinople. Sultan Mehmed II and his shattered, demoralized army have retreated back across the Danube. You have saved Wallachia through a campaign of such calculated terror and brutal genius that your name is now whispered with a mixture of awe and horror in every court from Buda to Rome. You are the champion of Christendom, the one prince who not only stood up to the Ottoman tide, but turned it back. You are expecting, perhaps, a thank you note from the Pope, or at least a congratulatory fruit basket from your Christian allies. Instead, you're about to be arrested by them. It seems no good deed goes unpunished. This is the next, and perhaps most soul-crushing reason it sucks to be you. Your greatest victory is immediately followed by your greatest betrayal. While you were busy fighting for your life and for all of Christendom, the King of Hungary, Matthias Corvinus, was supposed to be marching south to support you. He had even received a substantial amount of money from the Pope to fund this holy endeavor. He finally shows up with his army in Transylvania, fashionably late to the war you have just won by yourself. You ride north to meet him, expecting to join forces for a great counteroffensive to drive the Turks from the Balkans for good. You arrive at the meeting point. You are greeted not as a hero, but as a prisoner. The King of Hungary, Matthias Corvinus, your sworn ally, has you ambushed and arrested. The charge is high treason. It is a confusing and deeply disappointing turn of events. The precise motives for this betrayal are complex and debated by historians. Was Corvinus primarily interested in seizing control of Wallachia for himself by installing your more pliable younger brother, Radu the Handsome, who had returned with the Ottoman army? Was he under pressure from the powerful Saxon merchants you had previously terrorized, a callback to your brutal trade negotiations? Or did he genuinely see you as a dangerously unstable and uncontrollably violent ally who was more of a threat than an asset to regional stability? The answer is likely a cynical mixture of all three. To justify this shocking and dishonorable act of imprisoning the one Christian prince who is actually good at fighting the Turks, the Hungarians produce evidence. This is an obscure but critical part of your downfall. They produce forged letters. These documents, supposedly written by you to Sultan Mehmed II, prove that your entire war was a sham. The letters claim you were secretly plotting to betray the Christian cause, that you were offering to help the Sultan conquer Hungary in exchange for securing your own throne. The letters are obvious, clumsy forgeries. You are a lot of things, brutal, terrifying, and possibly insane. But you are not a man who writes polite, treasonous letters to the Sultan. You just created a forest of corpses specifically to annoy. But in the world of 15th century politics, the truth is less important than a believable story. A callback to the propaganda pamphlets produced by the Saxons, this is another instance where the written word is weaponized against you. The forged letters are copied and circulated to the Pope and the other courts of Europe. They are the perfect justification for your removal. Your monstrous reputation, the one you so carefully cultivated as a weapon, has now made you politically toxic. It is easy for the world to believe that a man who impales thousands of people is also capable of treason. Your greatest strength has become your greatest weakness. You are taken to Hungary in chains. You are no longer Vlad III Dracula, voivode of Wallachia, vanquisher of the Ottomans. You are a disgraced traitor, a political prisoner. The throne you fought so brutally to defend is handed over to your younger brother Radu, who will now rule Wallachia as an Ottoman puppet, the very thing your father was, and that you fought so hard not to be. You have lost everything, not to your sworn enemies, but to your supposed friends. You have learned the final bitter lesson of your world. In the great game of thrones, a monstrous hero is often more dangerous to the other players than a predictable villain. And so, you are removed from the board. You are taken in chains to the kingdom of Hungary. The great champion of Christendom, the man who made the conqueror of Constantinople turn and flee, is now a prisoner of his own Christian allies. This is the next reason it sucks to be you. You will now spend more than a decade of your life in captivity. Your great enemy is no longer the Sultan or your treacherous nobles, but the slow, grinding, and soul-destroying passage of time. You are Vlad the Impaler, the terror of the Ottomans, the son of the dragon. Your new life consists of staring out of a single barred window in a Hungarian fortress and watching the seasons change year after year. It is a significant step down in terms of daily excitement. This is a major historical fact of your life, a long, quiet chapter often glossed over between your reigns of terror. From late 1462 until approximately 1475, you are a political prisoner of King Matthias Corvinus. At first, your confinement is strict. You are held in the great royal palace of Visegrad, a magnificent fortress on the Danube. But you are not thrown into a lightless dungeon. That would be an insult to your royal blood, and more importantly, it would make you a martyr. Instead, you are placed in a state of comfortable, well-guarded house arrest. You are given fine clothes, good food, and access to books. Your imprisonment is not designed to break your body, but to slowly and methodically break your will. As the years pass, the world moves on without you. You hear the news that trickles in from the outside, a callback to the precariousness of your throne. Your younger brother Radu the Handsome, the one who grew up with you as a hostage in the Ottoman court, now rules Wallachia as a loyal puppet of the Sultan. He has undone all of your work. The anti-Ottoman policies you fought and killed for have been reversed. Your country is once again a vassal state. You are a helpless, caged lion, forced to listen as the jackals take over your kingdom. The rage you feel is immense, but it is a powerless rage. There is nothing you can do but sit in your comfortable room and stare at the walls. The precise details of your 12-year captivity are the stuff of legend. Some Russian stories, sympathetic to your Orthodox faith, claim you spent these years as a steadfast martyr, refusing to abandon your religion despite immense pressure from the Catholic Hungarian court. Other sources suggest you eventually made a pragmatic choice. The truth of your spiritual and psychological state during this long twilight is likely locked forever within the walls of Visegrad Castle. What is clear is that your status slowly begins to change. As the years pass and you prove to be a well-behaved prisoner, your restrictions are eased. You are no longer seen as an immediate threat, but as a fascinating, semi-tamed monster. Your jailer, King Matthias, a cultured and brilliant Renaissance man, occasionally has you brought to his main court in Buda. You are paraded around as a curiosity, a living relic of a more brutal age. Here is the famous Impaler, he might as well be saying. He used to create forests of the dead, and now he is quite good at chess. Do try the wine. Then, in a final, bizarre twist, King Matthias decides to fully domesticate you, to ensure your good behavior, and to formally bind you to the Hungarian crown. As a neutered political asset, he arranges a marriage for you. This is an obscure but true part of your story. You, Vlad the Impaler, the great enemy of the treacherous boyars and their political marriages, are married to a Hungarian noblewoman, likely a cousin of the king himself. You, the man who destroyed your own nobility to forge a path of absolute independence, are now a political son-in-law to your own jailer. It is the most cunning and humiliating form of imprisonment imaginable. You have children with this new wife. You are given a house in the city of Pest. You are a prince, a husband, a father, but you are still a prisoner. You cannot leave. You have no power. Your name, once a cause for terror on the battlefield, is now just a historical curiosity, a callback to your first imprisonment as a boy in the Ottoman court. This is the second long captivity of your life. The first one forged you into a man of iron will and furious ambition. This one is designed to do the opposite. It is designed to soften you, to domesticate you, to make you forget the dragon you once were. You are no longer a wolf at the gates. You are a well-fed dog on a very short, very strong leash, living at the mercy of the king who betrayed you. After 12 long years of being a political prisoner, a domesticated monster, the political winds of the Balkans shift yet again. Your younger brother, Radu the Handsome, who had ruled Wallachia as an Ottoman puppet, dies of syphilis. He is replaced by another Ottoman-backed prince, Basarab Lyota. But this new prince proves to be too ambitious, and the Ottoman threat on Hungary's border is once again growing. Suddenly, the king of Hungary, Matthias Corvinus, the man who betrayed and imprisoned you, remembers that he has a pet wolf in his backyard. After more than a decade of being a political pawn on the shelf, you are finally taken out of storage. This is the next reason it sucks to be you. Your return to relevance is not a triumph of justice, but another cynical political maneuver. In 1475, King Matthias officially recognizes you once again as the rightful Prince of Wallachia. He dusts you off, gives you a new sword, some Hungarian troops, and tells you that your long, forced vacation is over. It's time to go back to being the Impaler again, this time as a loyal vassal of the Hungarian crown. You are forced to accept the support of the very man who stole a dozen years of your life, a bitter pill to swallow, a call back to your past. You are once again forced to rely on an untrustworthy foreign power to reclaim your own throne. In 1476, at the head of a small army of Hungarians, Transylvanians, and a handful of loyal Wallachian boyars, you invade your own country for a third time. The campaign is swift. The Ottoman-backed Basarab Laiota flees, and you reclaim the throne of Wallachia. It is a moment that should feel triumphant. You have outlasted your enemies. You have survived decades of imprisonment and exile, and you are finally, truly, the undisputed ruler of your homeland. Instead, it feels strangely hollow. You ride back into your capital city of Târgoviște, but it is not the city you remember. A whole new generation of nobles is in charge, the sons of the men you impaled, and they look at you not with the raw, personal terror of their fathers, but with a kind of weary, historical curiosity. You are a legend, a ghost from the past, a story their parents told them to scare them into obedience. Your signature brand of theatrical violence feels a little outdated. You are a man in your mid-40s, hardened and embittered by a lifetime of betrayal and captivity. The country you have returned to is exhausted, bled dry by decades of war and political instability. Your state of mind during this final, brief reign is a complete mystery. Were you a bitter, broken man, simply going through the motions, a ghost on a throne? Or did the return to power reignite the old, cold fire of your ambition and cruelty for one last violent blaze? What is clear is that you are almost completely alone. The Hungarian and Transylvanian troops who helped you win the throne have mostly gone home. You are left with a small, loyal, personal retinue, surrounded by a country full of strangers who fear your name but have no personal loyalty to you. You sit on your old throne in your old court. It is a moment that should feel like a homecoming. Instead, it feels like a profound dislocation. You have spent a quarter of your adult life as a prisoner, dreaming of this moment. Now that it is here, the reality is a pale, lonely shadow of the dream. You are trying to rule a country that has learned to live without you, a country that has changed in ways you do not fully understand. You are an anachronism, a warrior from a more brutal age, trying to govern in a world that has already moved on. The great tragedy of your life is not the years you lost in prison, but the fact that you have finally gotten everything you ever wanted, far too late, and you have no idea what to do with it. You sit upon the throne of Wallachia, a ghost returned from a long exile. You have the crown, but the kingdom beneath it feels alien, the loyalty of its people a thin and brittle veneer. Your final reign begins not with a bold new vision, but with the grim and weary business of preparing for the inevitable. You have been placed here by the Hungarians as a direct challenge to the Ottoman Empire. You know the Sultan, your old childhood companion and lifelong nemesis Mehmed II, will not let this stand. Your glorious return to power has a very short expiration date. This is the next reason it sucks to be you. Your entire life has been a relentless, brutal cycle of fighting for your throne, and this final chapter will be no different. You have finally reclaimed your birthright after 12 long years of imprisonment. You get to enjoy being the Prince of Wallachia for approximately 2 months before the Sultan sends another massive Turkish army to invade and correct what he views as a minor administrative error. Your reign is less of a triumphant return and more of a brief, violent cameo appearance in your own life story. The Ottoman army, commanded by a Turkish pasha and accompanied by your old rival, the now reinstated Ottoman puppet Basarab Lyota, crosses the Danube and marches into Wallachia. You gather what forces you can. It is a small army, a fraction of the size of the one you commanded in your prime. Many of the Wallachian boyars, a new generation who do not share their father's terror of you, are hesitant to commit to what seems like a suicidal war. They offer you only a handful of their own troops, holding the rest back, waiting to see who will win. Your only significant support comes from a small contingent of Transylvanian soldiers, a bitter irony considering your past conflicts with the Saxons. You ride out to meet the Turks. You are a legendary warrior, the terror of the Ottomans, a man whose name once broke the morale of an entire army. You are also a man in your mid-40s, weary from decades of war and imprisonment, leading a small, unreliable army into a battle you almost certainly cannot win. This is not the glorious final battle against your great rival Mehmed that you might have imagined in your youth. The Sultan has not even bothered to come himself this time. He has simply sent a subordinate to erase you. This is just one more miserable fight in a lifetime of miserable fights. In the winter of late 1476 or early 1477, your small force finally confronts the much larger Ottoman army in a field somewhere near Bucharest. And here, your story, which has been one of such brutal, stark clarity, dissolves into a fog of confusion, legend, and propaganda. The true story of your final moments is lost, a final sucky insult to a man who craved control above all else. This is a major and frustrating historical fact. No one knows for certain exactly how you died. There are several conflicting accounts, each serving a different political purpose. The most heroic version, the one favored by your admirers, is that you died fighting bravely, overwhelmed by superior numbers, a Christian martyr falling in a last desperate stand against the Ottoman tide. A noble end. Another, more sinister version suggests you were betrayed, that in the heat of the battle, a faction of your own treacherous Wallachian boyars, who had already made a deal with the Turks, turned on you and murdered you from behind. A classic Wallachian political maneuver and a fittingly bitter end for a man who spent his life fighting their treachery. A third, and perhaps most tragic version of the story, claims you were accidentally killed by your own men. In this telling, you had charged so far ahead of your own lines, so deep into the Turkish ranks, that your own soldiers, seeing your Turkish-style clothing and the chaos of the melee, mistook you for an enemy commander and cut you down. It is an end of pure, chaotic irony. The great warrior killed by friendly fire. The only consensus is this. In a small, forgotten battle, in the mud and the cold of a Romanian winter, you, Vlad III Dracula, son of the Dragon Prince of Wallachia, were killed. Your story does not end with you riding off into the sunset after a glorious last stand. It ends abruptly and confusingly in a ditch somewhere near Bucharest. It is an obscure, pathetic, and deeply anticlimactic end for a man whose life was defined by such theatrical and unforgettable violence. Your death is not the end of your story. It is merely the beginning of your career in entertainment. This is the final, and perhaps greatest, reason it sucks to be you. You do not even get to rest in peace. Your life was a miserable, brutal, and tragic struggle, but your afterlife will be a long, strange, and wildly inaccurate theatrical performance in which you are the unwilling star. First, however, there is the matter of your body. In the aftermath of the battle, your head is cut off. It is preserved in a jar of honey by the victorious Ottomans and mailed to your old childhood companion, Sultan Mehmed II, as a thoughtful, estiva pensaring tea present. He has it displayed on a spike in the center of Constantinople, a final, ironic impalement for the Impaler himself. It is the ultimate proof for the empire that the great dragon, the terror of the Danube, is truly dead. Your body is likely buried in a monastery in Wallachia, but its exact location is lost to history, becoming a source of endless romantic speculation. For the next few hundred years, your memory survives in two parallel, completely contradictory forms. In your own country, Romania, you are largely remembered as a national hero. A harsh, cruel and terrifying hero, yes, but a hero nonetheless. You are the voivode who brought order, who crushed the treacherous boyars, who stood up to the Turks, who fought for the independence of your nation. You are a founding father, a symbol of fierce, defiant patriotism. But in the West, particularly in the German-speaking lands, the story is very different. A callback to the propaganda war you lost. The gruesome pamphlets printed by the Saxon merchants continue to be bestsellers. For centuries, your name is synonymous with monstrous, inhuman cruelty. You are remembered not as a prince, but as a blood-drinking devil, a sadistic tyrant. Both of these versions of you are true, of course, depending entirely on which side of the stake one was on. And there your story would have remained, a complex and debated figure in a little-known corner of European history. But then, in the late 19th century, something strange and unexpected happens. An Irish writer named Bram Stoker, while researching in a dusty London library for his new gothic horror novel, stumbles upon a historical account of your life. He knows almost nothing about you, about your wars, your politics, or your tragic childhood. But he finds two things that are absolutely perfect. He finds your reputation for monstrous cruelty from the German stories, and he finds your name, Dracula. It sounds dark, foreign, and vaguely aristocratic. It is the perfect name for his villain. Congratulations. You have just been posthumously cast in the leading role of a horror story with which you have absolutely nothing to do. Stoker takes your name, your homeland of Transylvania, even though you were Prince of Wallachia, a small but significant inaccuracy, and your reputation for brutality, and he fuses it with the pre-existing folklore of the undead vampire. He creates a charismatic, cape-wearing, castle-dwelling aristocrat who sleeps in a coffin and drinks the blood of the living. The historical man, the traumatized boy hostage, the betrayed Christian champion, the ruthless nation builder, is completely and totally erased. All that remains is the name, and so your final sucky fate is sealed. You, Vlad III Dracula, Prince of Wallachia, a man who lived and died in a brutal, complex political world, are now a myth. Your real, miserable, and profoundly human story of suffering and survival is forgotten, replaced by a much simpler, much more entertaining story about a monster. The ultimate tragedy of your life is not the betrayals you endured, the battles you lost, or the lonely death you suffered. It is that you, a man obsessed with control, completely and totally lost control of your own story. You have been impaled one last time, not on a wooden stake, but on the sharp, permanent point of a novelist's pen, destined to be remembered forever for what you were not, rather than for the complicated, tragic, and terrifying man you actually were.